ladies and gentlemen, to the She Knows Pro Football podcast. Once again, I'm Alice, aka the NFL Girl. And once again, I got my good friend Dominick here with me. Dominick, how you doing today?
Alice, I'm not doing too bad. It was an exciting week one. We had a lot of upsets. We even had a tie, and we had one or two blowouts, but not too many. So overall, it was a good week.
Week one was so fascinating. You guys didn't turn out quite as well as I hoped it would for my team, but that's neither here nor there. We are moving on to week two. I can't wait to see how some of these teams turn around, if they can turn it around. So let's get started with our Thursday night matchup. We got the 1-0 Los Angeles Chargers headed to Kansas City to face the 1-0 Chiefs. Dominick, who you got?
These are the two top teams in the AFC West. I think they could be two of the top teams in the AFC as well. I mean, I know Buffalo's up there as well, but these two are definitely there. It's going to be difficult for the Chargers to go into Kansas City and win this game I know Justin Herbert's there, but he's not going to have Keenan Allen this game, who did pull up lame with a hamstring in the last game, and they just ruled him out for this game, so he's not going to be there. So it's going to be up to Palmer as well as Mike Williams to do something in the pass game. They do have Austin Eckler in the run game. He didn't do much in week one, but they didn't really need him, as they did still beat the Raiders. But it is going to be more difficult here going away from home, going into Kansas City. Kansas City's home opener after beating down Arizona last week, and I do think Kansas City's going to be able to win this one.
Listen, I almost never pick against the Chiefs when they're playing at home at Arrowhead, because Arrowhead is an insane stadium to play in. And Chargers not having Keenan Allen in the lineup is going to be significant, because that is their WR1, and Justin Herbert kind of leans a little heavily on them. I expect better numbers this week out of Austin Eckler, but I do not think it's going to be enough. Guys, Patrick Mahomes has proved right out the gate that the loss of Tyreek Hill will not matter to this team. He was able to spread that ball out everywhere. Everybody got their hands on it. They looked phenomenal. So definitely not going against my typical trend. I am picking the Chiefs in this game. Moving on to Sunday, we got the 0-1 Jets headed to Cleveland to face the 1-0 Browns. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, unfortunately, the Browns were able to pull the game out last week with a last-second field goal to beat Carolina. Now they come home. Jacoby Brissett didn't look great last week, but he did just enough. He's not going to have to look great against the Jets, though, because the Jets are spiraling out of control right now. They're already having some criticism from their locker room. Robert Saleh came out, was critical of the team today, so it's just showing the ineptitude the team has. Zach Wilson will not be back for this game. It's going to be Joe Flacco once again. Myles Garrett is going to have a field day against Joe Flacco, who can't move. He couldn't move when he was young. Now he's older. He's definitely not going to be able to move, so I think Myles Garrett gets at least a couple sacks in this game. So as much as I liked Cleveland last year, I hate them this year, but unfortunately I think they're going to go to 2-0.
The Jets without Zach Wilson are a question mark to begin with. So them with Joe Flacco as their starter, they might get a win or two. I'm not 100% positive, but the way the Cleveland Browns looked last week, they looked pretty good, in particular on that defense. Offense will always have questions. I didn't see anything that impressive out of Jacoby Brissett to change my mind, but again, they have Kareem Hunt and they have Nick Chubb there. So that offense, even if they just have to lean more heavily on that run game, they'll be fine because they have such a good defense. Just meanwhile, with Joe Flacco as a starting QB, hell, with Zach Wilson as a starting QB, can't pick this team. Not confident in this team. Do not believe in this team. Got to take the Browns in this game. Next up, we got the 1-0 Washington Commanders headed to Detroit to face the 0-1 Lions. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, Washington looked pretty good in this game, your hometown team. Carson Wentz had 4 touchdowns. He did have 2 interceptions, which was actually surprising for him. He hasn't had more than 7 interceptions in any of his full seasons since his rookie year. So that was surprising he had so many bad throws, but he did. Antonio Gibson looked good with Brian Robinson not being there. But the defense without Chase Young is going to get exposed this week. Amon-Ra St. Brown looked good last week. He had a touchdown for Detroit. Jared Goff pretty good as well. DeAndre Swift had a great game. He had 15 carries for 144 yards and a touchdown. So I do think that they're going to be able to run the ball on Washington. I think that the defense is going to play better for Detroit than it did last week against the Eagles. The Eagles just have much more on offense than the Washington Commanders do. So I do think that Detroit's going to win this one.
Commanders actually surprised me on how well they played in week one. I was not expecting that because, again, Chase Young being out is significant on that defense. And until he comes back, I'm never going to be fully sold that they'll be able to win every game. However, Carson Wentz actually looked pretty good in week one, which he looked better than what I was expecting. And I'm actually happy for him that he looked as well as he did. the Detroit Lions. Again, it's the Lions. They're not going to get every win this season, but they looked really, really good. This team is really stout. I know I'm kind of in that Hard Knocks. I saw them on Hard Knocks, and I'm kind of in that way of feeling very sentimental towards this team and everything. But I actually was very impressed with this team. They put up a lot of points. Jared Goff looked really good. Amon-Ra St. Brown still putting up numbers like he did last season. DeAndre Swift, always can count on him in the backfield. However, this is a hard one for me. I want the Lions to win, but I have a feeling that the Commanders are somehow going to pull off something fluky in the end. So I'm going to give this one to Washington. Next up, we got the 1-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers headed to New Orleans to face the 1-0 Saints. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, the Saints pulled that one out of their butt last week. They were down going into the fourth quarter. They ended up pulling back and winning by 1. Michael Thomas had 2 touchdowns in that game. Jarvis Landry had over 140 yards receiving and more than 10 receptions. I believe he had 15 receptions, which is crazy. Obviously, Chris Olave didn't really do anything in his first game, but he should start doing something as well. Alvin Kamara really didn't do a whole lot, so they were really counting on Mark Ingram. As long as Alvin Kamara is back in this game, I think they should do even better. We know what Tampa Bay is, but we do know that Chris Godwin's not going to be there. He's going to be out for probably a couple weeks with a hamstring/knee injury. They're not sure exactly what it is. Leonard Fournette looked good last week, though. So did Mike Evans. Julio Jones looked really good, and obviously they still have Tom Brady there. Tom Brady has never beaten New Orleans as the quarterback at Tampa Bay. He's 0-4 in the regular season, but I do think he's going to be able to beat them this week, unfortunately, and I do think that they're going to go to 2-0.
Listen, as soon as Tom Brady announced he was coming back, I knew that they had something special there in Tampa Bay. So it's hard to pick against them in any circumstance. New Orleans, I actually really love Jameis and his energy. I'm hoping that he can put it together as far as the numbers to match it. Him having Michael Thomas back this year is going to be significant for him, as he is a true WR1, no questions asked, and he proved it last week. I'm so confident on what they're going to be able to do there, especially with Alvin Kamara in the backfield. However, again, we're talking about Tampa Bay with Tom Brady. Stop it right there. You have Chris Godwin, you have Mike Evans. This team is so stacked and so good. And then they got a great head coach. So it's so hard for me to pick against them. So I'm just not. I'm going to take the Bucs in this game. Next up, we got the 0-1 Carolina Panthers headed to New York to face the 1-0 Giants. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, the Giants shocked everybody last week and beat Tennessee with that 2-point conversion at the end. You know, it just showed what Ryan Dable was really there to do. He had the guts to actually go for it instead of kicking like a 64-yard field goal or anything, something like that. But he went for it on 2-point conversion, got the touchdown, got the win. They come back home now. They have their home opener. Carolina didn't play that well last week, but they almost won the game. They lost on the last-second field goal. Coming into this game, I think the Giants are going to be excited to be at home. Hopefully they're not on a come-down from the game last week. I do think they're going to be able to win this game, and I do think that Carolina goes to 0-2 and the Giants actually stay undefeated.
I want Baker to do well in Carolina. I really do. I think he got shafted there in Cleveland, and I would like to see him get another opportunity and hopefully at some point sign a long-term deal with some team. I don't necessarily know that is Carolina because they have Matt Corral when he comes back healthy next season. So I'm hoping he gets an opportunity, and the way that he's going to do that is put up some phenomenal numbers in games. We finally saw Robbie Anderson do something. I was actually impressed by that. They still have DJ Moore there. You have McCaffrey healthy right now, which was great for them last week. So this team has the pieces to really be something this season. And we saw some flashes of that. They just couldn't get it done in the end. That's fine. Giants, meanwhile, Brian Dable showed that he's willing to take chances. He's willing to take risks. If it had gone against him, it shows that he at least was willing to make the effort. And it worked out in his favor, and his team won, and it gave them some confidence. Sterling Shepard is healthy, and he looked good. My goodness, Saquon is healthy, and he looked good. I'm so excited for this team. I really am. I'm not still sold on Danny Dimes. I don't know that I ever will be. That's just it's my thing. But this week, they're back at home, and seeing the way everybody's playing right now and seeing them have a coach that's willing to take chances and believe in his team, it makes such a difference for me. So, yeah, I got to take the Giants in this game. They're at home. Next up, we got the 0-1 Patriots headed to Pittsburgh to face the 1-0 Steelers. Dominick, who you got?
For two former Super Bowl contenders, this could be the ugliest game of the week. I just think this is going to be a terrible matchup. Neither of these teams have a good offense. We don't know what's going to happen. Mac Jones had back spasms last week. He's healthy now, and he says he's going to be back in play. But even with him back, they really don't have anything else there on offense. Both these defenses are good. Obviously, TJ Watt is not going to be there this week, so that really takes it away from Steelers as well. But the Patriots have nothing to be able to take advantage of that with. So this is going to be an ugly game with Mitchell Trubisky. This is actually the first game since 1998 between these two teams where either Tom Brady or Ben Roethlisberger isn't playing. It's going to be just as ugly as it was back then. But I do think that Pittsburgh being at home, they may have a slightly better offense with, even though their defense isn't quite as good without TJ Watt. So I'm going to take Pittsburgh to win this game like 7-3.
Patriots, without the Tom Brady there, this team has really not been the same. It just haven't. I know everybody thought it was Belichick, but now we're starting to see that, no, it really was Tom Brady because he hasn't been able to replicate that without him there. Will they be able to overcome that this week going against these Steelers, considering that they're without TJ Watt? Keep in mind, this is Mitchell Trubisky. I know he didn't get a fair chance in Chicago. I think he's going to have a better chance here. He has Chase Claypool. He has Deontay Johnson. He has Najee Harris. He has good weapons surrounding him. And they have a decent defense even without TJ Watt there. Considering all the things that the Patriots are missing and are lacking, I don't see a way for them to be able to pull out a win in Pittsburgh specifically. So definitely got to give this game to the Steelers. Next up, we got the 0-1 Indianapolis Colts headed to Jacksonville to face the 0-1 Jaguars. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, no matter how good the Colts are, they always struggle in Jacksonville for some reason. And I think they're going to struggle again here. But I do think Matt Ryan's going to be better. He's going to be back down in the warm temperatures of the South that he's used to. I do think that they're going to have it. Jonathan Taylor's going to be great as well. Michael Pittman's going to have an elite game against this Jacksonville defense that is not going to be able to hold up to everything that the Colts can throw at them. The defense for the Colts is pretty good. Hopefully, Shaq Leonard is back this week. I'm not sure if he's going to be or not, but hopefully he is. I do think Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence are going to finally find something, but I don't know if it's going to be this week. I don't really care for Christian Kirk there as well. I know it's always bad to go for Indianapolis in Jacksonville, but I do think that they're going to be able to figure some way out to pull a victory out.
Colts somehow managed to pull out a tie. That should say something to me positively, but it was against the Texans, so it doesn't. I saw some good things in Matt Ryan there. I really did. But I saw some things that really disappointed. He does have a great receiver in Michael Pittman, and of course they have Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. They have the pieces there to really do something. I just don't know what that thing is. Jacksonville, meanwhile, kind of a disappointment. There were things that I was hoping I would see in week one out of Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence that I didn't see. But I did see some flashes of good things that he does have there. He does have Marvin Jones there. He does have a good mesh with that, and he does have good receivers. So the offense is pretty good. It's some of the defense that still needs to be worked on. I still think the Colts, same thing with Shaq Leonard being out. That is kind of a big question mark. That's a big gap for them to try and fill. If I have to choose between Matt Ryan and Jonathan Taylor and Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne, that's a hard thing for me to have to choose. But at the end of the day, I want to see Jaguars do well with Doug Peterson as their head coach. So I'm going to lean the other way. I'm going to take the Jaguars in this game. Next up, we got the 1-0 Miami Dolphins headed to Baltimore to face the 1-0 Ravens. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, Miami looked good last week, but again, it was against the New England Patriots, who really didn't show anything at all last week. Miami was able to connect to Jalen Waddle at a 40-yard reception at 4th and 7. That's never done against the Bill Belichick defense. The Patriots just didn't look good at all last week, so I don't really know if we found out a whole lot against Miami or about Miami or Tua. Coming into this game, we're going to find out a lot more. I know Kyle Fuller is out. He tore his ACL, but the Baltimore defense is still going to be very good, especially being at home. Lamar Jackson is going to threaten this Miami defense, which isn't really that great, even though they only give up 7 points. And I do think that J.K. Dobbins has a chance to be back this week. He did practice today. With him back, with Kenyon Drake actually looking good last week, with Mark Andrews there, I'm going to have to take Baltimore to win their home opener.
Dolphins looks pretty impressive last week. Tua, that matchup he has with Tyreek Hill, that matchup he has with Jalen Waddle, my goodness, this is going to be a fun young team to watch. And I'm hoping they can capitalize on that, at least in their own division. They could absolutely, outside the Bills, let's be honest here, they could absolutely run through the other teams in that division other than the Bills. But I am very confident in what I'm seeing and what I saw. However, saying all of that, they're going to Baltimore to play the Ravens. And Lamar Jackson, as I said in week 1, is playing for something. It's playing to prove to them that they need to sign him to a long-term deal, lock him up for however many years. This kid is so good, and he's so fun to watch. I hope they get J.K. Dobbins back this week, because J.K. Dobbins might be that little piece that was missing for them. And I think that will make that little oomph that they need to get over the top. Playing there at home in Baltimore, got to take the Ravens in this game. Next up, we got the 0-1 Atlanta Falcons headed to Los Angeles to face the 0-1 Rams. Dominick, who you got?
I'm going to keep this one short. Atlanta was lucky to even be up last week against New Orleans. They were at home. They were happy to be at home. Now they're on the road in the Rams are pissed off because they lost to the Bills ugly last week. I think that Jalen Ramsey and company is going to be on a mission. I think that Aaron Donald gets to Marcus Mariota at least 2 or 3 times in this game, and I don't think it's going to be even relatively close. So I would take the Rams to win this game by double digits.
Listen, I like Marcus Mariota, but I keep telling you guys, I'm not sold on what I think he can do long term and what he can do over the extent of an entire season. I think there are pieces missing there, and so it's just too easy for me to just lean on the Rams. Rams have a great defense. Matchup that Stafford has with Cooper Kupp is one of the best in the league. Definitely got to take the Rams here at home. Next up, we got the 1-0 Seattle Seahawks headed to San Francisco to face the 0-1 49ers. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, so we've been doing this show for 3 years, and every time a division team in the NFC West play each other, I tell you that these games are usually closer for some reason. It just depends on the matchup. This game is always close, no matter if it's in Seattle or San Francisco, no matter what the point spread is. Here, San Francisco is favored to win by 10.5 points. I don't think they're going to cover that. I do think this game's going to be close. Geno Smith looked good on Monday night. We'll see what Rashad Penny can do here against the San Francisco defense, but we know San Francisco wants to run the ball well. It's going to be hard with Elijah Mitchell being out now. He's out for probably 8 weeks, so they're going to have to see if it can be Jeff Wilson or somebody else in that backfield. But I do think that Deebo Samuel's going to be a lot better this week than he was last week. Trey Lance is going to be a lot better this week than he was in that monsoon they had in Chicago last week. He's going to run the ball a lot more as well, especially with Elijah Mitchell being out. I think they're going to control the game clock. They're going to keep this one low scoring, but they are going to be able to win the game at the end.
49ers with Trey Lance, oh my God, I just can't. I can't at all for this team. Seahawks, it's not what I expect. Geno Smith really showed that he has something to prove. Like, y'all talked all that smack about me. You talked about that I was washed up, that I was nothing, that I was nobody, blah, blah, blah. And he actually went out there and he put up a great game. And that team looked really good. And that defense really stepped up. And his receivers really stepped up for him. Good for him. I'm so happy for him that he was able to do that. 49ers, meanwhile, Trey Lance, I'm not sure what the hell is going on with this team. They do not have the answers. They do not have the pieces. The reason they kept Jimmy G there is because I don't think they're 100% sold on Trey Lance yet. I think that there's a possibility if Trey Lance doesn't get it together in the first, say, 4 or 5 games of the season, they'll pull this kid. I know they don't want to do that, but clearly the fact that you keep Jimmy G there says something. And Elijah Mitchell being out is going to be a problem for this team. Listen, I'm not picking the 49ers. I absolutely cannot, even though they're at home. The way Geno Smith looked last week, if he can keep this flowing, this team could do pretty well going down the stretch. Got to get this one to the Seahawks. Next up, we got the 0-1 Cincinnati Bengals headed to Dallas to face the 0-1 Cowboys. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, both these teams are 0-1, as you said, but they got there in different ways. Cincinnati had some ugly turnovers by Joe Burrow. He had 4 interceptions and a fumble loss. He had 5 turnovers total, but they still outgained the Steelers by over 100 yards. They had 32 first downs to the Steelers' 13 first downs. They just, again, because of the turnovers, they just really weren't able to capitalize on anything. So I do think they're going to be able to capitalize this week. They're not going to be playing outdoors. They're going to be playing in Dallas. Dallas is going to be without Dak Prescott, as we know, for somewhere between 4 weeks and a year, depending depending on Jerry Jones. And Cooper Rush is going to be in there. I don't know what he's going to be able to do. I do think that Cincinnati is going to be able to win this game very big, even without T. Higgins may not be in the game here with a concussion. We have to see if he clears protocol, but they still have Jamar Chase there. They still have Tyler Boyd there as well. Hunter Henry looked really good last week in his first game at tight end for them. Joe Mixon is still there. The defense is still pretty solid there, so I do think Cincinnati is going to win this game.
Listen, I'm so disappointed that the Bengals lost last week. And it was on some fluky crap. Everything was going wrong as far as the kickers last week for both teams. And so they weren't able to pull it off, and that sucks. It really does. Cowboys, meanwhile, the fact that they are going to have to be without Dak Prescott and they're going to have to lean on Cooper Rush in order to win this game, I can't pick this team, even though they're there at home in Dallas. Bengals looked really good. If it wasn't for the fluky situation with the kicker, I think they could have won this game. We still got a great matchup with Jamar Chase. Still got a solid running game with Joe Mixon in the backfield. Love what they can do with Joe Burrow. It's always impressive to me. Defense looked pretty good. So if they can get the kicking game straight, I'm not worried about them. Cowboys having to lean on Cooper Rush at least for the next 4 weeks. Not going to pick this team. Definitely taking the Bengals in this game. Next up, we got the 0-1 Houston Texans headed to Denver to face the 0-1 Broncos. Dominic, who you got?
Well, the first thing we obviously have to say about this game is that it's a good thing it's in Denver, because if they have to make a 60-yard field goal, he might be able to make it this time. But we never know what to expect from Denver. Sometimes they play good, sometimes they play bad, but they always play good at home, especially their home opener. I think Russell Wilson really wants to show the Denver fans why they traded all those first-round picks and everything for him. Jerry Jeudy had a pretty good game last week. He did have that drop near the end of the game, but for the rest of the game, he looked pretty good. Cortland Sutton's there as well. Javonte Williams looked great. He didn't really have a whole lot of rushing yards, but he did do amazing things in the pass game, and that's really what they have him there for. They can use Melvin Gordon in the back. They can have that dual role back there between the two of them. So I really like what Denver's doing. I know it's going to be difficult to do much for Houston on offense. We don't know what Davis Mills is going to be. Dameon Pierce, who everybody loved in the preseason, didn't do anything. It was Rex Burkhead last week in the run game. Brandon Cooks is there, but we'll see what he can do as well. O.J. Howard actually had 2 touchdowns last week, his first game with the Houston Texans at tight end. So we'll see if Denver can cover him. I think they are going to be able to, and I do think Denver's going to win this game. Probably, for some reason, they always play close games at home, so I'm going to say they're going to win it on the field goal at the buzzer.
Texans were able to pull out a tie in the game, which is fine. I love Lovie Smith, and I want to see him do well there in Houston, even though I don't necessarily care for this team. Davis Mills, again, this is another one of these QBs that has something to prove. And so I hope he has a good season, just not against my Broncos. Sorry. Broncos, they were such a hot mess on defense last week. They got embarrassed, and now they're going to be without Justin Simmons. I'm hoping they can overcome the loss of him. The offense looked pretty good. I'm hoping they can do better this week, because we're not taking another L. We definitely don't need to take one there at home. Russell Wilson, this matchup that he has in particular with Jared Jeudy, I'm hoping he can lean a little more on Cortland Sutton this week. Javonte Williams, I need to see him do more. Kind of disappointed in him last week in the performance I saw out of him, and so I need to see something out of this team. I can't have a repeat of what happened last week, but they're going against the Texans. They're there at home, and McManus can kick a 64-yarder, in that thin Denver air, even if he can't in Seattle. But we'll see how that goes. Hopefully we don't have to come down to that. Definitely taking Denver there at home. Next up, we got the 0-1 Arizona Cardinals headed to Las Vegas to face the 0-1 Raiders. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, Arizona looked terrible last week against Kansas City. They lost 44-21. We don't know what they're going to be this week either. They do have a couple of good players there. They have Hollywood Marquise Brown there, Kyler Murray. We like him as well. James Conner in the backfield is a great story, and he's a pretty good, solid player as well. The Raiders almost pulled out a win against the Chargers last week. Devontae Adams had an awesome game in his first game. Derek Carr, unfortunately, threw 3 interceptions in the game, so that's kind of what kept them from beating the Chargers. I don't think he's going to throw 3 interceptions in this game. I don't think Arizona has anybody at all who can cover Devontae Adams or Hunter Renfrow. They don't have anybody who can cover Darren Waller as well. We don't really have to worry about Josh Jacobs, but even with this pass game doing what they're going to do against this Arizona defense and secondary that is very weak, I do think that Las Vegas is going to be able to win this game and send Arizona to 0-2.
Kyler Murray not having Nuke there is a problem because that is his true WR1. That is the receiver that he relied on most heavily last season, and not having him for the first 6 games is really going to expose this team. That's my feeling, and so far, that's what I've seen. Whereas the Raiders, listen, the addition of Devontae Adams there, oh my God. Already you're seeing what these two can do together. Derek Carr needed a true WR1, and he got it. He got probably the best in the league, and that's in Devontae Adams, and what they were able to do last week. Chef's kiss. My goodness, I love it. And then he has Darren Waller, who they just signed to a long-term deal, who's a phenomenal tight end there. Hopefully we'll see some more numbers out of Josh Jacobs, but just those 2 players alone is enough to put up ridiculous numbers in the league. Then back at home, going against these Cardinals, it's too many things wrong with this defense. And again, as I said, Kyler Murray absolutely needs DeAndre Hopkins back. And while these first 6 weeks are going to be a testament of how well he can play without him, I don't think it's going to be a good testament. And therefore, I got to take the Raiders in this game. Next up, we got the 1-0 Chicago Bears headed to Green Bay to face the 0-1 Packers. Dominick, who you got?
Green Bay seems to come out slow in week 1 for some reason. Even last year against New Orleans and Jacksonville, they lost 38-3 in the first game. Then they came back and scored 5 touchdowns against Detroit in week 2. The same thing's going to happen here. From CBS Sportsline, Green Bay, most home field advantage is 3 points in the NFL. Green Bay actually has a point home field advantage of 7 points in most games since Aaron Rodgers has been there. He's just a monster at home. This team is a monster at home. As we saw last year, he owns the Bears. He's going to own them again this week, and they're going to crush the Bears.
Packers did not look good. As I said, losing Devontae Adams was very hard on Aaron Rodgers, and it was very good for Derek Carr. And that was exposed last week. I'm not saying that he doesn't have other decent receivers there. You know, he has Randall Cobb there, he has Allen Lazard there. This team will overcome that loss, but these last week was a testament of just how significant of a loss that is in that passing game. Now, running game, we ain't got to worry about as much. They still have Aaron Jones. They still have A.J. Dillon. The running game will be fine. Defense was a little lacking last week. I think they'll overcome that this week. Chicago, they lucked up and got a rainy, sloppy field, which they knew how to handle, and San Francisco did not. I do not think that they're going to have the benefit of that this week. I like Justin Fields. I like David Montgomery. Just don't think we're going to get a repeat of what we had last week when they played in terrible conditions, playing there against Green Bay. Green Bay has something to prove. They're at home at Lambeau Field. Got to get this to the Packers. And moving on to our Monday night matchups, we got the 0-1 Tennessee Titans headed to Buffalo to face the 1-0 Bills. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, the Bills looked good last week in opening night against the Los Angeles Rams. They beat them 31-10. Obviously, Tennessee looked terrible against the New York Giants, losing at the buzzer there on that Saquon Barkley 2-point conversion. Ryan Tannehill didn't look great. Treylon Burks really did absolutely nothing. Robert Woods did nothing either. Derrick Henry was okay, but he wasn't up to his normal self. So in this game, it's going to be very tough for both games. As good as Buffalo was last year, and Tennessee was kind of spiraling when they came in last year, Buffalo ended up going in there and losing big on Monday night in Tennessee. So this game could go either way. I do think it's going to be closer than the 10 points that the line says it's going to be. I do think that Tennessee's going to be able to keep it close, at least for a while, and they could only lose this game by a field goal or so, but I do think they're going to lose it, so I'll take Buffalo.
I'm not picking the Titans in this game. Just not going to happen. I want better numbers out of Derrick Henry. I expect I'm going to get better numbers out of Derrick Henry. Always impressed with this kid. Expecting hopefully over 100 yards and a touchdown, but against this Buffalo defense, listen, Buffalo are the favorites for a reason, and they showed last week why the hell they are the favorites. This is a phenomenal, heavily stacked team. We got not even just on the offense, but on the defense as well. The addition of Von Miller is very significant for them, especially after they lost Trey White. Having him there made a big, huge difference. And then you got how well Josh Allen is playing, not just with Stephon Diggs, but with Gabe Davis as well. Such a good, fun team to watch. Tennessee has things that they need to plug and problems and issues they need to work on that defense. Definitely have to take Buffalo here, in particular because they're at home. And last up, we got the 1-0 Minnesota Vikings headed to Philly to face the 1-0 Eagles. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, these two teams could have been two of the most impressive teams last week other than Kansas City. Both these teams looked really good in their wins. We saw Philadelphia put up 38 points. They almost lost it at the end, but that was more garbage time. They only won by 3 points. The Vikings, on the other hand, they played really good against Green Bay. They actually got an interception from Aaron Rodgers, which is the first time in 5 games. Before that, he has 13 touchdowns and no interceptions in the last 4 games against Minnesota. So I do think this game's going to be really good. We saw A.J. Brown have 155 yards in his opener for Philadelphia. It was the most ever for a Philadelphia Eagle in his first game. We saw Justin Jefferson had 184 yards last week as well. He had a touchdown. So I do think this is going to be a very high-scoring game. It's going to be a close game.
Minnesota, listen, I'm never sold on Kirk Cousins, but he has great receivers, in particular in Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, and I love what they can do with Dalvin Cook in the backfield. Philly, the addition of A.J. Brown was a hell of a difference for this team. So I definitely feel like this is going to be a big thing for them. And so I'm hoping that them being there at home will make a difference for them. So I'm going to take Philly in this game. I absolutely think the Eagles can win this. And I'm hoping big things out of that defense in particular as well. Well, you guys, that's all of our matchups. Dominic, give me 1 start and 1 sit in fantasy.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a player on the same team. Well, 2 players on the same team. For your start, I'm going to say Antonio Gibson. Everybody was afraid of him when Brian Robinson looked good, but Antonio Gibson looked really good last week against Jacksonville. He had 50 yards rushing, 70 yards in the pass game. He didn't have any touchdowns, but hopefully he'll get one this week against Detroit. And for a sit, even though he played good last week, Carson Wentz, don't trust him this week against Detroit. He had 314 yards passing last week. He had 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I don't see him doing that again this week. So if you're going to stream another quarterback, I'd rather stream somebody other than Carson Wentz.
Well, you guys, that's all the time that we have today. Want to thank everybody again for listening. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at TheNFLGirl320. Dominic, where can they follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter at EnvisionFF.
You can read more of my thoughts on SheKnowsProFootball.com. Dominic, where can they read your work?
You can read my work on The Athletic, on the Philadelphia Eagles, and on sportsbookwire.com by USA Today.
That's all the time we have, you guys. See you back here next week.